Hey Flyers, welcome to Flyer Nation. I'm Tony DeNardis at Strike and Spare 2 in Lockport, the home of the Lewis University Women's Division II bowling team. Today I will be joined by the Director of Bowling, Scott Taylor, along with Marissa Metcalfe. But Scott, welcome. Thanks for taking some time to talk with me today.
Thank you for having us on today. Appreciate it.
Of course. So first things first, there are people who are not very familiar with the sport of bowling, or at least how it works in terms of a team aspect, right? People know bowling for fun, you bowl by yourself. But from a collegiate standpoint, how does that differ?
Well, it differs in a lot of different ways, but to save some of the really technical stuff, the couple biggest things is, we don't just bowl 5 individual games sometimes. We do that on Saturdays, but the other 2 days we bowl Baker games, what they're called. So basically you're getting 1 score between the 5 bowlers instead of 5 scores. So they each bowl 2 frames, and that gets your final score through 10 frames. So that's one of the biggest differences when you talk about college bowling. And then the other thing is the oil patterns that they put out. A regular bowler will come out and there'll be like no oil on the lanes or used oil. Or if you're just bowling in a league or an adult league or something like that, it'll be like a house shot is what they call it. So we bowl on what it's called a sport shot. And that's what like the professionals bowl on. And basically it's just a lot more oil, a lot more, there's no room to miss, basically.
Okay.
So you have to hit the right board, basically, to strike most of the time.
And then you mentioned, too, the team aspect's important of it, right? Obviously, it comes down to each individual bowler, but there are multiple bowlers on a team that work against other teams. Is that correct?
Yeah, so for NCAA bowling, we do bowl against each other. Every match is head-to-head. So you win or lose every match, which is kind of nice because the other collegiate leagues don't do that. So it's nice to have that. It's really competitive, makes it competitive because you can beat anybody any given day. We've had really good success against some top teams in the past, so it really is a little perk to come here.
And it's the team that decides who wins these, right? It's not the individual scores, it's the combined among the players.
Correct. So yeah, if we have 5 and 5, it's your 5 against your team's 5, and whoever shoots higher wins. And it's just, if we do a Baker, on Fridays we do 5 sets of 5 Baker matches, so we're going to get 5 Baker scores from the team and add those up and compare them with the other team. And then Sundays is a best of 7 Baker. So, you're bowling your single game. So if you shoot a 180 and the other team shoots a 160, you win that game. And the first team to 4 wins.
Now getting ready for that, because you guys are practicing right now, what is a typical practice like? Because I'm assuming it's a lot more than just bowling, right? I saw you working with certain players, I'm assuming on throwing technique, all different things.
Yeah, everybody's got different things to work on. So Thursdays, what we're having right now is individuals. So they come in and you work on what you need to, and the rest of the week we do different team drills or team activities. We're kind of more on the same page on the other days. This day it's whatever you need to work on, and there's a bunch of different things in bowling. You have to get like 6 or 7 different things to make it work right.
Now, in these practices, are you putting the players that are going to be on the same team during the competitions together? Or are you working them individually and then eventually maybe pairing them up with their team?
Yeah, so in the past we've always kind of split things up pretty evenly or had, a variety of players on different lanes. We started doing a little bit this year was when we're doing Baker matches in practice for, say, we're having our travel unit basically, or our top normal bowlers that bowl the most on one team, and then everybody else on the other team to make it more like a basketball field where, you have your A squad going against your B squad and run different plays and stuff. So we kind of started doing that a little bit this year.
Now, do you feel that the biggest challenges for you as a coach come in practice when you have a lot more going on, or when the heat of things pick up in the middle of a bowling match? Do you feel more challenging for you as a coach?
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
When things are going good on the lanes and people are executing, it's not as hard of a job. The hardest part of that job is to keep teams lined up because the lane conditions change. So you have to keep people moving and stuff, and that's where it gets to be a mental grind of making sure the bowlers are consistently in the right spot, in the right ball, because we bring 6 different balls to tournaments. So all those kind of physics things you have to worry about in that sense. When things aren't going as well and people are struggling a lot more, then it gets really tough because now you're trying to focus on not only that part of being in the right lane and ball, but now you're trying to fix what they're doing wrong at the same time. So it can get really really rough at times. It's not easy to fix in like right away sometimes.
Are you not trying to force things that you missed into the practices coming up, or is it just certain things you're focusing on to try to eliminate some of the problems now that, like you said, you are with a short week?
Yeah, exactly. We can't fix 5 things at once. Right. So, it's that one thing, and let's be really good at that one thing, and that's what they're all working on right now, is those different things that they need to tweak up a little bit. But if I tell them, like, you need to do this, 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 and this, nothing's gonna change for the weekend. It's gonna be like, hey, if you can fix this part of it, you're gonna be in a lot better shape than you are now, and then we'll, when we have that break, we can work on a couple other things.
Now, this may not be an easy question to answer. When you talk about memorable moments this season, moments that stick out to you, whether it's recently at the start of the season, what sticks out to you the most in terms of maybe what's most memorable and what's maybe propelled this team to put them in a good position where they're at right now?
Well, the thing that is probably the most memorable, obviously we won the tournament. We shot, when we won during that day, we shot our highest day ever. So that's always a memorable day instead of a moment with the highest score. So that was really good. But the thing I think that's really going to stick out to me is at Maryville, we had a couple rough days, and we came out the last day on Sunday and really performed well. And we had a really bad break in one of the games where we had the match. We would have won the match. It would have been over with. We were up 3-2, and our last bowler threw a pocket shot that left a split. Great shot, left a split. And so it was 3-3, so it was winner take all, and in that situation, anything can happen, right? So I stopped and told them, hey, like in my mind, we won the match. Like we couldn't have done anything about that. So just go out and have fun and execute the best you can. And we stayed positive, and we came out and won that last game. And that's a sign that as a coach you want to see, where you can overcome those hurdles and obstacles that you can't control and still execute and end up winning a match. And that was really a special moment for me.
Well, like you said, you can't play defense, right? So you got to put forth your best effort and then just honestly hope for the best.
Yeah. I mean, like the girl threw a great shot, and that was like the second time this year that we threw a great shot to win a match and left that same exact split. The other time was to the number 1 team in the country. If we picked up a spare, we would have won or we would have done something, we would have won the match or at least tied, and a spare or at least tied it, and sure enough, we get that, lose by 1. So like those are the things that we're executing the way we need to in those situations. It's just that we're not getting the breaks we need to.
Well, hopefully there's plenty of good memorable moments left for you guys this season. You still got a ways to go, right?
Yeah, we got 4 more tournaments left, so it doesn't get any easier right now. We're on, off the rest of the year, and then 2 finish the year with conference. And, the girls a lot of them remember what happened last year at conference, our best ever finish. So they're really excited to try to go back and get another step further this year.
Well, we're going to take a quick break here on Flyer Nation, but when we come back, we'll talk about the student recruitment process coming up next. For over 50 years, WLRA has been on air showcasing countless students. As the first all-digital college radio station, Lewis University students are given access to industry-leading equipment that commercial stations utilize, equipment that creates, and equipment that brings radio to life.
I like WLRA because it gives me the opportunity to get experience with news broadcasting and working with radio.
Stop by De La Salle 210 or at WLRA Radio to get started on your radio career. We're back here on Flyer Nation at Strike and Spare 2 with the Director of Bowling, Scott Taylor. Now, Scott, we talked about your season a little bit and getting prepared for matches. But when looking ahead to the future and players are looking at Lewis to possibly continue their bowling careers, what advice would you give them in that process and finding the right program that best fits them?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different options, and it makes it difficult. So, the biggest things that I look for, at least, is like, are you for me or we? That's the biggest thing I look for. If you're, if you care more about yourself shooting well than the team, then probably not a good fit. So that's kind of what I look for. And then is it going to fit into our culture? So I basically tell the recruits I have, whether they come here or not, I tell them you have to be where you want to be. You shouldn't let other things dictate your decision. I know a lot of times money plays into that and scholarship amounts. And I said, you might have you might be getting the money you want somewhere, but if that's not the way you want to go, that's where the transfer portal always ends up people in it. And I said, but if you really want to be somewhere and that's where you want to be, that's, whether it's here or wherever, like you have to feel like that's your home. That's where you want to be. And, building that relationship up with the coaches and, the players on the team obviously goes a long way as well. But we try to buy into that family environment.
And how big is the transfer portal? Because, we hear it in basketball and football especially, right? It's a big deal. But in bowling, it's maybe not necessarily talked about as much. Is that something you guys utilize quite a bit nowadays, or?
The transfer portal is pretty small, at least for NCAA bowling. There's
Okay.
only like 30 to 35 in there. We only have 80 schools or so, but it's been generically pretty low. Now we have used it each of the last 2 years. We've been fortunate enough to get a transfer each of the last 2 years that have helped us out a lot. But it's not something I ultimately want to hinge myself on. We have 7 girls coming in next year, so I'm already sad. I'm not even really looking at the transfer portal right now. So I'm really trying to build people up and come here through for 4 years. That's the ultimate goal. I think a lot of coaches really would like to have that. It's just harder to have that at this day and age.
And I didn't even ask you. You started the first bowling teams here at Lewis. What made you want to do that?
Well, I graduated from here, so I always wanted to get back into Lewis. I love Lewis. I was always part of the athletic program, whether being a basketball manager or sports editor of the Flyer.
Okay.
Been a part of a radio show that was on there, and so I always loved Lewis, and this is home to me. And once that bowling program gave that option, then my bowling background really came into play and it was giving me that opportunity.
That's what I was going to ask you, because you were the basketball manager, like you said, all 4 years at Lewis, correct? And then you minored in coaching, so that definitely prepared you for a moment like this, right? Leading really this bowling team and getting it started.
It did a little bit, but it didn't do it as much as you would think.
Okay.
There's a lot of on-the-ground learning that you have to do, and it takes a lot of different attempts to do things, and I would never want to start a program again from scratch. It is hard. It is very hard to do. It might be a little bit easier in the transfer portal age because you can pick up more people, but building a team from scratch is hard, and it was very stressful. But you learn on the job, and you do take some of those tools that, not just being a part of, the coaching minor, but those coaches that I was around, the basketball coaches, the volleyball coaches, getting all those insights and having all that support really helped as well.
And I can see why it can be stressful, right? Because Lewis never had it, so you never really had that experience on a collegiate level before, right? Until you created it and then got to see it take place.
Yeah, you never know you have what's in your mind is what you want, and it's really hard to start out. I had my vision, but it took a few years to get to that vision. And now we have that vision. Now we have that where everybody knows the expectations, this is how this program runs, and it's really hard to build that from the start, unless you get people bought in from the start. But now it's easier to buy people in because they've seen the success, they've seen what we're about, and other people have been a part of that, and they can lead the way on that.
And are you satisfied with the growth that this program has made since it started about, 5 years now?
7 years.
7 years now? Okay.
Yes and no. There's definitely good signs and signs. There's some things I wish we would be doing better and have a little bit more success than we have in different ways. But I'm very proud of it from the aspect of all the programs around us, the D2, D3 programs that started the same time as we did, are gone. There's 4 or 5 D2 programs specifically that started with us or a year after us, and they don't exist anymore because they could never build a competitive team. So that's the thing that I take with me the best, is that it was a really hard time to grow programs, and a lot of people weren't having the success or the numbers they needed to continue, and we've been able to do that. So now it's just getting that next level of where we want to compete with the top teams in our conference, in one of the best conferences in the country.
And one more thing I wanted to ask you too, is it difficult that you don't have the ability to bowl on campus, that you have to drive? Not that it's far, but is it difficult that you have to come off campus to practice and get prepared for matches?
It'd be great to have it on campus. The schools that do, you just walk out of your dorm room and go to the practice whenever you want, and have a lot of different times. You don't have to be bound by an alley to be set up with certain times, but at the same time, they take great care of us here at Strike and Spare, and they support us a lot. So if you have to be off campus, there's no better environment than here, especially being able to host the huge tournament we just did with the top teams in the country. It can't be done without a great bowling alley to go out of.
Well, thanks, Scott. I appreciate it, and best of luck to your team moving forward.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Coming up next on Flyer Nation, we will be joined by Marissa Metcalfe.
The Ray Strong Foundation was created about 4 years ago. It came after, as a couple, we had our first child. She was born at 24 weeks. She weighed 1 pound, 12 ounces. Then she proceeded to spend another 4 months in the NICU. That was the time that she should have been growing in the womb. During the 4 months, we visited her daily, and we got to sit down with the doctors and the nurses, and the amount of medical knowledge and what they can do to make sure that your child survives is amazing. And just the experience, it was nothing we could have ever been prepared for. So emotionally, we became very tied to the micro-preemie world. And that was when we decided to create a foundation with the goal of trying to give thanks back to the NICUs, the nurses, and then also provide any sort of emotional or financial help to other families that might experience what we went through.
We've had the opportunity to host over 40 events, celebrating micro-preemies, fundraising, and bringing awareness to micro-preemies and their families. When you get a chance, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, or our website at raystrong.org. Donate, and thanks again for all the support.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Flyer Nation. I'm joined by fifth-year graduate student Marissa Metcalfe, who this is her first year transferring to Lewis. What made you decide to transfer here?
Yes, I decided to transfer because I looked into the family nurse practitioner program, and I saw that it was very accredited, and I also loved meeting the girls on the bowling team, and I met Scott, and I thought it was going to be a great fit, and so far it has been.
Now, where did this interest in bowling start from you? At what age did you really start playing?
So my parents actually threw me in bowling at the age of 2 years old. So my brother, he's 5 years older than me, and he was bowling on the Saturday leagues, and my parents were like, might as well get her started since we had to bring her here anyways. So
right.
That's kind of how it began.
Now, was Lewis a part of your college search process coming out of high school, or is this something you found an interest in toward the end of your college career?
Yes, so actually I was a part of the Northwest Indiana Tournament Association, so I knew Scott because he and Mike Croucher had known each other too, and Scott is a well-known coach in the area, and I live around here, so I did happen to contact him before too, but in terms of other plans, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to pursue at the time. But I'm really glad that coming this time around that I was given the opportunity to compete for this team.
Now, when your collegiate career is done, do you plan on continuing bowling after graduation? Are you in a league outside of this? Are you allowed to do that? How does that work?
Yeah, so right now I'm actually, there's been a lot on my mind considering that. I've always dreamt of becoming a professional bowler. Right now, given that I'm a registered nurse working on top of bowling for this team and school, of course, it's been difficult trying to manage getting to that point where I want to excel in my bowling career as well. But I do plan to be on the lanes for as long as I can in my life, and I'd love to do some professional events in the future.
And I asked Scott this question, but you guys have a lot of competitions now, like back to back to back. You have the Flyers Classic, now you have the Vikings Classic coming up. How do you prepare for something like that when you only have less than a week to do so?
Yeah, so if I'm being completely honest, more of it's mental than physical. We go through, and building muscle memory takes not only a week, but it takes months, it takes years. And so the biggest part is the mental process and knowing that you've built that stamina to, make repeat shots, but believe in yourself and have the confidence that with any pattern that you're thrown out on, that you could still give it your all and not get tired, because that's probably the hardest part.
Well, is there a routine that you have coming into each tournament?
Yeah, so usually like today we're having practice where all of us just kind of get used to the shot, and we try to get loose, but in terms of preparing, we'll change with surface. We'll try and watch videos to see how lane play is going to work, take a look at the oil pattern, and devise a plan and see, okay, which balls are going to work, which arsenal, is going to fit the best for this.
Now, you mentioned team preparation. Is there anything you do outside of being in the bowling alley to prepare yourself for these big competitions?
Well, I think the best way I usually like to do things is through self-care, because I think we all need time to decompress, so we really allow ourselves to relax and be in the best mindset that we can be so that we can perform the best. So some things I like to do include like reading, or I'm kind of weird, but I like to study too, to try and calm myself down, get your focus on something other than competing too, so
right.
You kind of have those outlets.
Now you're averaging 186.3 on this season. Is this your typical average for you? Is this a career high for you? Where does this rank in terms of other years?
I mean, if I'm being honest, I like to always view myself as someone who can progress and be better. So I don't like to boast and say this is the best I've done or this is, the worst I've done. But I'm not content with where I'm at. I'd like to keep growing and become the best bowler I can be. And I know that there's always room for improvement.
Now, are there any goals that you have personally to get to that status, being the best bowler that you can be?
Yeah, so right now, Scott and I even talked today, Coach Scott and I, about working on different techniques to try and get my hand positioning in a better place. And mostly right now is just the fundamentals and, just going back to basics to get to where we want to be, and also finding that mental niche to make sure that we're staying calm throughout all the approaches and consistent, because the biggest thing in bowling is repeatability.
And it's always important to know too, right? Not try to do too much. A lot of times that can happen if you're struggling and you're trying to correct it maybe too quickly or at a different rate than what you normally would. But like you said, stick to the basics, and a lot of times that will work for you.
Yep. Yeah, I think definitely making sure that, the biggest thing is consistency and knowing that, in each shot that we're as close to our mark as we can get. And, that's the goal.
Now, is there a moment that sticks out to you since you transferred to Lewis from the season?
Yes, so I love this team more than words can describe. I never thought I'd find a team where I considered everyone my family. And especially coming from a team where I felt that, it was hard being so, far away from home since I was in Pennsylvania. Not only do I have my, immediate family, but I've also created a bunch of great people around me here at Lewis that treat me, just as their own. So it's been a great experience so far, and I'm really thankful for it.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that, and I wish you the best of luck moving forward, and good luck in the Viking Classic.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I want to give another thank you to Scott Taylor as well as Marissa for taking some time to be with me today, as well as Strike and Spare 2 for hosting us. But be sure to tune into our next episode of Flyer Nation right here on the Lewis University Television Network.